So I wanted to address two different questions on the homework that have to do with what we call number theory. Okay, number theory has to do um with working with the counting numbers and all the different things you can do with counting numbers. They also call them the natural numbers because they're the numbers that come most natural to us when you're a child. The very first thing mathematically that you learn to do is count, right? So there's all kinds of things that we can learn without having to deal with negatives and variables, and it's really interesting. So one of the things that we can do is find the least common multiple. And one way to do that is to simply take multiples of the numbers. So 20, 40, 60, 80, 100, 100, 120. You know, you can go on as far as you'd like. Hopefully you went far enough. 24, that one's a little harder to do that quickly. 24 times 2 is 48. 24 times 3 is 72. 24 times 4, I guess I could just double 48, so that would be 96. 24 times 5, if I'm gonna do 24 times 5, why don't I do 24 times 10 and then cut it in half? So what's 24 times 10? 240 divided by 2 is 120. And I could keep going, but I can identify right away that 120 is the least common multiple. Another way to have done this is to take 20 and do the prime factorization tree. And so you get 2, 2, and 5. And then 24, you can do that as well. Let's do 12 and 2, 6 and 2, 2 and 3. So you look for things they have in common and you write them down. You look for things they have in common and you write them down. And then you start writing down the other stuff. So there's a 2 they don't have in common. There's a 3 they don't have in common. And there's a 5 they don't have in common. So if they have it in common, you write it down once. If they, and then you write down the rest of the stuff. And then you multiply that out. 2 times 2 is 4, times 2 is 8. 8 times 3 is 24. 24 times 5, we said was 120. So that's another way of doing it. The other thing that you're going to come across in the homework is related to divisibility rules. Now, we want to know what numbers 1,206 is divisible by. So the easiest thing to notice is that this ends in a 6. 6 is an even number. And so you know that this is divisible by 2. Here's another one that's really interesting that you may or may not know, but there's a way to know if this number is divisible by 3. And what you do to decide if something's divisible by 3, you take 1, you add it to 2, you add it to 0, and you add it to 6. Now in this case, you get 1 plus 2 is 3, plus 0 is 3, plus 6 is 9. Then you ask yourself, is Is 9 divisible by 3? The answer is yes. So 1,206 is also divisible by 3. It's kind of an unusual divisibility rule, but it works. Is 1,206 divisible by 4? Well, we know it's divisible by 2, in which case you get 603. But is 603 again divisible by 2? No, because it ends in 3. So it's not divisible by 4. I'm just going to put, it's not divisible by 5 because it doesn't end in a 0 or a 5. It's not divisible by 5. Is it divisible by 6? Well, it's divisible by 2 and also divisible by 3. And since 2 times 3 is 6, it is divisible by 6. There's a rule for divisibility by 7. I'm not going to do that one. If it's not divisible by 4, then it can't be divisible by 8. I'm going to do one more. Actually, 2 more. Is it divisible by 9? The rule for divisibility by 9 works the same as 3. If you add the digits and the result is divisible by 9, then the original number is divisible by 9. So when you add them, you get 9. Is 9 divisible by 9? Yes. So yes, it's divisible by 9. One more. Is it divisible by 10? In order for it to be divisible by 10, it has to end in a 0. So it is not divisible by 10. So whenever they ask about divisibility tests or divisibility rules, that's what they mean. So those are some ideas related to number theory.